Live. Look at that. We're live. Okay. So it's going to be delayed on the stream, but everybody,
Sure.
I'm Bill Murphy from MMORPG.com, and I have the absolute pleasure to have Matt, formerly known as Positron Miller, and he was the former lead designer, as I'm sure you all well know, on City of Heroes. Today, we're going to answer a ton of questions that you guys submitted to the community, all about the game, its history, its closure, what Matt's doing now, and if we have time at the end of all that, we will go ahead and go through and actually post or answer some questions from the community, from you guys in chat. So let's go ahead and just get started right off the bat. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. It's been a weird couple months. Not going into work. It definitely is takes a little getting used to. So.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, what have you been doing with all that spare time?
Oh, I've been interviewing and talking to different companies and talking with my family about what we're gonna do and looking about moving out of the area. Is that going to happen? Things like that. So just trying to find the right fit for myself and my family, and what I can do and where I can apply my skills the best.
And do we have any hints that you can talk about as to where that might lead you?
I don't know exactly yet. I
He
got
wants
a
to
couple.
answer, folks, but he
I
can't.
do want to answer, but I don't want to jinx anything.
Yeah.
It's there's a couple places that look very promising. So.
Well, what was tell me. I mean, NCSoft in general, they've closed down a few games now, and everybody has to close down MMOs once every so often. But this was the first one you've ever been a part of that was closed, correct?
Yeah, it's the very first one. It's the very first studio closure I've ever been a part of.
Can you
Uh,
tell me like what was that like when you found out? When did you know? How did that happen?
yeah, so there was a couple months before it actually happened. There was some the management basically was in a position where they knew that this was a possibility, but they wanted to see if they could make something happen, if they could sell the studio to another publisher or do a management buyout, things like that. So there was a small group of us who were actually kind of in the know on all the things that were going on in terms of what was Brian Clayton was doing to try and save the studio. And we always wanted it to succeed. We felt that it was going to succeed. No one really had any inkling that everything was going to fall apart. And just as it got closer and closer to the deadline, things looked less and less certain. And things just got a little bit more scary, more nervous, and then literally the afternoon before we got the word that the studio was closing down, Brian was still trying to make something happen. And when that fell through, he basically had to tell us, hey, tomorrow, is the last day. So.
Oh, that's brutal. And it's one of those things where this game, for the longest time, was known as the Widowmaker. And I work at my day job. I also work at a VA hospital, and there's a guy there who doesn't play any other MMOs. The only MMO he's ever played is City of Heroes, and with his son. And I actually saw him crying when he was telling me about how the fact it was closing down, because he wasn't sure how he was going to be able to connect with his son anymore if
Yeah.
they didn't have City Heroes. I know that's not something you want to hear this close to
That's
Christmas, but that's the power these games have.
yeah, I know, and especially like MMOs. It's just a great way to connect. I mean, you create an avatar, have the chat interface, can play in a virtual world with other people, yeah, the connections you make there are they're solid, right? And
Hmm.
and you want to play with those friends for as long as you possibly can. And taking a game away from people, it's a horrible thing.
Yeah, it's brutal. But I mean, I guess it's still a business, right? I mean, it has to be done sometimes, and that was just the luck of
Uh,
the draw.
Absolutely. We were not really sure what happened on the business end for them to want to close the studio down. That's all. It's knowledge NCSoft has. It came as a shock to everyone. The developers, the management, everyone that they'd want to do this. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, let's get on to some happier subjects here. We'll actually go to the the fan questions so that we don't spend the whole time talking about bad stuff. I sent Matt a list so he knows that these were coming, and there's a whole bunch that we're going to try to get through, guys. I think how much time you got, Matt? Let's put it that way.
I have a flight out of here in about 14 hours.
In 14
So
hours, so we have 14
yeah,
hours to 12 hours. You got to get there early, but
I
let's go.
do. Yes.
So the first question we got was from a poster on MMORPG.com named Night Audit, and he asked if the possibility existed to remake COH and COV, what parts would you keep, what would you change, and what would you omit fully from the game?
The number one part that I would keep would be the costume creator. The costume creator in City of Heroes was amazing. I knew people that just played City of Heroes just for the costumes. They would just go in and make costumes over and over and over again. So that is like the number one feature that I would keep. Would be a robust costume creator that you have access to from the start. Stuff I would change, I'd probably change a little bit on how the archetypes work, make them a little bit easier to understand, a little less polarizing. Not there were archetypes that were made specifically to work in groups and really be horrible soloing,
Mm-hmm.
and that was just naive MMO design because we were designing an MMO before World of Warcraft,
And
right?
before soloing was really the thing
Before,
you needed to have.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So going in and kind of modernizing the archetypes that you'd have access to would be a thing I'd change. And then something I would remove. I don't know. There are things that are difficult that like doing a two-sided game with heroes and villains is extremely difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to basically write twice as much content, and you pray that you have a 50-50 split, but that's never going to happen. One side's going to get more player love than the other one. So and then player love equals developer resources, so the other side feels neglected. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And yet everybody always wanted to be the villain, so when you gave it to them, they were super happy about it, but it had to be a monumental undertaking.
It was a monumental undertaking, and it was fantastic for like the first year, but then it really started to kind of peter out.
I
So
could only imagine, like, crap, I really don't want to do two games anymore at one time.
yeah.
That's sort of, on another topic all entirely, that's kind of what the industry's running into is, man, is it hard to make a lot of content at a breakneck pace anymore.
It is absolutely is one of the hardest things to do for MMOs because the formula is around 4 months of work will get you 2 weeks of content,
If
and
you're lucky.
which if you're lucky, and that you just you pray that that's a sustainable formula. So.
I want to ask one question then, kind of thinking about that. When you guys did the actual ability to actually make missions and stuff like that, that sort of gave you a little bit of a break, I bet.
A little bit. It allowed us, we had the dream that we would never have to make content again. But that was never really,
Pipe dream.
it was just a pipe dream, right? Because even the mission creator stuff, you didn't have access to all the tools that we did, and we could make content that was super special that was
Hmm.
not makeable in that mission architect. And that's what players wanted. They wanted more official missions and move the storyline forward, things like
Yeah.
that. So we had to give it to them.
Okay. Moving on, we have a question from Stars Man, and he says, or she, I guess, if you manage to come up with investors or lottery money, would you plan on creating a new MMO yourself?
If there was the money, then yeah, sure, I'd absolutely do an MMO myself. Apply my talents in still in the MMO field. That'd be fantastic. It's just MMOs are incredibly expensive to create. It is, outside the realm of what a Kickstarter can do. Even like the most popular Kickstarter still doesn't even begin to approach the type of money that you're going to need to raise to fund an MMO.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just about to say, we'll get you on Kickstarter, and I bet money we can probably get one hundredth of what you need, because it's
Yeah,
hard. It's hard.
it, yeah, yep.
Um, the next question, he actually has a couple here, was assuming a yes that you would make an MMO. would you decide to make a spiritual successor to City of Heroes, or would you go for something entirely unrelated to superheroes?
Um, if you know what, I probably would do something spiritually successing to City Heroes. Because there's a lot of City Heroes players out there right now who don't really have a home, but don't
Mm-hmm.
really have a game to go to, right? And kind of doing a modern take on City of Heroes, I think would be a fantastic idea.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I always wanted like Champions is Champions, and then Marvel Heroes. Well, it's not really going to be anything like an MMO in my book, and City of Heroes was it, and now we have nothing. So, but the next one, moving on, so we can get through all these. We have a guy named Failchew. I think it's Failchew. He asks, "What are the Paragon Studio? Where are the Paragon Studios developers now? If you could say, I'd like to support the games they're currently creating and making and working on."
They've scattered all through the wind. I know some have ended up at social game companies like Zynga, and there's also others who have ended up at the big places like EA, and working with the guys up there. And but I know two of the designers have actually come out and publicly stated where they are, which is working at Cryptic on Star Trek Online, and that was. Arbiter Hawk and Dr. Aeon are working on Star Trek Online for Cryptic. So if you like the content they made for City Heroes, then you can hop on over to Star Trek and see similar stuff.
Which, by the way, I got to say, Star Trek has become a fabulous game over the years. It started off rough, but it's great now.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of people asked in the last days of City Heroes. We do live stream chats and stuff. They said, what game can we go to that's that can give me that that feeling of City Heroes. Mm-hmm. And honestly, like Star Trek Online is probably the closest one out there.
Yeah.
You have a mission creator, you've got costumes, you've got good action combat, and
the storyline that comes every so often. Their episodes,
story arcs, and things like that. Really, they've got two sides, Feds and Klingons. So yeah.
And it's for the I like that game. It's for a hardcore fan, but it's also for like anybody who saw like the new Star Trek movies could pick it up and be like, I get this. They just wouldn't get all the references that are in there.
Yeah.
Okay, the next ones are coming from Nathaniel. He's got quite a few that we have. First question: what did you like most about creating content for the players?
I loved writing stories, and stories where you could insert whatever character you had in your mind and feel like that story was written specifically for you and how you would react to it, and your character, your hero saving the day and becoming the the hero of the city, or if you were a villain, you were doing villainous deeds, things
the
like
bastard
that.
Of the city.
Yeah, those are definitely things that I loved. Is being able to just kind of play game master for hundreds of thousands of players at a time, and run their characters through different scenarios.
Next one is, what issue post-Freedom launch was the most time-consuming on the game?
It was probably going to be I think it was issue 28 we were still working on, which was going to be the moon base, and that was going to take the most time to do because we were going to do a brand new zone with all new art assets, including new enemies with new art assets, things like that, and that was going to be the biggest issue that we were working on. And unfortunately, it was the one that we had kind of just started when everything went kaput.
So you had just had concept stuff in place, but nothing really major.
We actually started creating the assets. One of the environment artists had had a bunch of photo reference that I had given him, and he went and started making the mining drills and things like that for what the moon base was going to look like.
Man, that's sad news again. That's ugh. Okay, well, we'll keep moving here. How long in planning was City of Heroes Freedom? As going free-to-play wasn't an easy decision, I'm sure.
So the planning, if you go as far back as the very first genesis of the idea, it was about 12 to 15 months, right? But then from, once we really sat down and started designing it was about 10 months, and then getting the green light was about 9 months. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So you knew I mean, you guys all knew for a while that this was the step that you thought that the game really needed. Then.
It was a big step, and if you kind of look back, with hindsight being 2020, you can see the kind of the issues that we were putting out during that 9 month cycle were a bit on the light side, because we had kind of refocused everybody into getting freedom done, right?
Mm.
And it was everyone, it was all hands on deck. Let's get freedom done and out the door. And we had that September deadline, and we were not going to move it because every day more and more games are going free to play, and our window of market share was getting smaller and smaller. So we really didn't want to push it out any further.
Yeah, I understand. Next question was, how long... Oh, I'm sorry, that was the one we just did. Let's try it again. What did you most like about the community and interacting with them on a daily basis?
I most liked the fact that they loved the game, and they definitely had a passion for the characters, the stories, the places, everything about it, the lore. They just absolutely they gobbled it up, right? And to the point where after the studio was announced being closed, people had so many questions that me and a bunch of the other designers, we did sort of like an AMA and Ask Us Anything, and we answered a whole bunch of lore questions for them, just so they can get a little bit of closure on storylines and stuff that we had in the future.
That's a good question now to add to that. I remember when the comic book was around. What was that like? Were you part of that? Were you involved with that?
So the comic book was funny. It was basically Sean Fish. He was kind of the designer in charge of steering the comic book, and he would talk with the writers for the comic book and kind of pitch them story ideas, or they would pitch them back, because a lot of the writers who wrote for the comic book were big players of City Heroes.
Okay.
It was a big collaborative effort. And when it came down that we were actually going to stop doing the comic book, stop publishing the comic book, I actually went to Sean and said, "Hey, I've got an idea for a story. Can I write?" And he's like, "Let's write it together." So we actually wrote the last two issues of the comic book, issues 19 and 20, together. So that was really fun.
I actually remember. I think it was. I'm not sure when it was exactly, but I got City of Heroes. There was like a sale at GameSpot, and it came with, or GameStop, and it came with the comic book, and I was just enthralled by the fact that there was this game and the comic book like together, and it was so good. Anyway,
here's a little bit of trivia. There was a point in the comic book coming out where basically we sent it to every subscriber of the game,
mm-hmm.
right? And because we did that, we were the #1 published comic book that month. Because we had so many subscribers that we basically were printing more comics than Iron Man or Captain America.
That's insane. I love that. That's the coolest thing I've ever heard. It makes me say, like, man, why couldn't they just keep the comic book going at least? Somebody should. Somebody in the community should.
Incredibly expensive to print.
I bet. But now you could do it. Now you could do it entirely with e-publishing. Come on, man. Come on, man.
Yeah,
you do it. You do it yourself.
Yeah. You'd love my drawings.
Next question is, of all the former devs that had left or moved on before the shutdown, which one did you miss the most? I hope we're not going to single anybody out too badly, so you got to own up a little.
Which one did I miss the most? There's a lot, right? But I'm gonna throw two out there who were like the last two that kind of left before everything happened, and that was Chris Behrens, who was Baryonyx. He got a fantastic job offer working with some old colleagues, and he was doing a ton of stuff for us. He was on schedule to completely redo the Cathedral of Pain for the players, and do a brand new Cathedral of Pain, using all our fancy new scripting and everything. But he just got that new job offer, and that was very sad. And then the other one was Cord Carney, Cord was sort of the mastermind behind our summer event this past summer,
Okay.
where we did the summer blockbuster. A bunch of us designers came up with these sort of ideas for the movies that we were going to put in the summer event. I wrote up the very rough outlines, but Cord was the man in actually making all that stuff come to life in the game.
Mm.
And yeah, he got again got a job offer back in Seattle where he grew up and he loved, so he took that so he could move back to where his friends were.
That's kind of how the industry goes too. Is everybody kind of moves around, whether there's layoffs or closures or not. People just kind of float back and forth all the time. It's very journeyman, the
Yeah,
designing world.
yeah, they definitely try and find their place.
Yeah. um, okay, the next question comes from Wildfire15, uh, and they ask: is there any particular feature of City of Heroes that you are most proud of?
Oh, yeah, I would say our free to play conversion. I'm actually really proud of,
Yeah.
especially the Paragon reward tree that we did, because we, we had the biggest problem of, we had veteran rewards in the game, and players would earn veteran rewards for the time that they, were subscribed. Um, and when going to free to play, time subscribed really was not a value anymore. It was, we kind of had to change things up. So we created the Paragon reward tree. Put all the previous veteran rewards in that tree,
Hmm.
preceded them if you had the time invested. But if you bought more points or you were subscribed, you actually got to kind of choose which rewards you got. Have a little bit of choice in what the next reward you were going to get was, which I thought was fantastic. And plus, even if you were subscribed for a year and stopped playing for 4, and you came back to the game because it was now free,
Yeah.
we still gave you credit for that year. That it was all still there. We made sure that you didn't really lose anything by coming to our free to play.
Yeah, I mean that's a real value, no matter how you slice it, really.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was a fantastic design.
Yeah.
It really addressed a lot of concerns players had. It was really one of the best ways to do it, and it worked out really well.
Okay, moving on, we have a guy named Leper Dave, who I hope he's not really a leper, but in case you are, I am sorry. It sucks when like noses and ears fall off in your Pepsi. But he says you created Positron while playing Champions, the pen and paper game. So, do you still play Champions? And if so, which edition of the game do you consider the most viable?
I haven't played Champions in about 3 years, and the last time I played Champions was at a con in the Bay Area here, and it was trying to remember. It was like riding a bike. It was like, oh yeah, OCB DCB. I remember how this works. Roll 3d6 and ask someone at the table if I hit or not.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I really don't know, which versions were definitive. It was probably one that Bruce Harlick worked on because he was my ex roommate. So
Oh, did you hear that? Look at that.
what's that?
Ex roommate. I didn't know that. Sorry, that's news to me.
Oh, yeah. Bruce Harlick and I we were roommates together before he ever got hired at Paragon.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. The next question is how close. It's the same question, same line of questioning. How close is the positron of COH to the original as far as powers go and design?
Powers, it's pretty far away from on powers. It's he makes things explode. That was the champions version, and there wasn't really a make things explode at distance power set in City of Heroes. We had energy blast, so that's in radiation blast. So that's kind of where he gravitated towards, kind of shoehorned him into the City of Heroes universe with that. But his costume has changed dramatically, though. The one he had originally was very 1980s and shiny and purple and things, and
Yeah.
we kind of wanted to modernize him up. So the concept artist, came up with some new looks for him. And then I wasn't completely thrilled with the original implementation, so I gave him the sort of blue Tron lines to kind of further differentiate him and give him a little bit more flair.
I kind of want to
So
see the old purple one, like 80s looking one.
I will
Pictures?
tweet it later, right after this.
If you
So
don't, all these people will hold you hostage. You know they will. You
yeah, I
won't
mean,
be able to
just
leave.
yeah, I've tweeted it before, so I know it's on my Flickr page somewhere. So it's findable.
I'm looking forward to it, to be perfectly honest. So I think we have to put that up. Now that reminds me though, the Positron. We say Matt Positron Miller on the stream because that's what people know you as, but it's no longer your Positron anymore, is it?
I didn't want to really deal with NCSoft lawyers as to
Yeah.
who owned Positron because pretty much when that got put in the game, I was signing away any rights I had to the character. So yeah, Dark Respite just put it in the chat. So uh,
There you go.
I will open that up so I can tweet it later. Okay. Yeah. So I didn't really want to deal with that. I knew, going in that, should this day ever come, I was never going to be Positron
Hmm.
if I wasn't working for NCSoft. So, but I did have the Twitter handle of MMO Designer on another account, so I just swapped to them. So people who were following me as Positron_COH just saw me as something else.
That's good. I think they actually I think the COH Twitter actually posted that too, so everybody knew to switch over. But
Uh, Twitter does it automatically. If you change your Twitter handle, people
oh,
don't need.
that's
Oh,
right. There you go. I think it
yep.
was. I don't know where I saw it, but it was actually like the City of Heroes things where like they were getting upset that they were trying to tweet at Positron and so or COH Positrons. They're like, no, he's here now. Go to this one. Um, that that makes me wonder what would your name be? Let's say if you when you go design for a new studio and you've got to pick a name, what's that going to be?
I,
Can't be
I,
Matt Miller. Everybody, there's too many Matt
there's
Millers.
there are a lot of Matt Millers in this industry, but when I started, I was the only one. So, yeah, I don't even know. I haven't really put any thought into that. So, actually, I put thought into it, but I never came up with an answer that I liked.
A good
So,
one.
yeah, so
Mohawk.
no,
No.
it's just balding.
Don't
My,
worry. I'm following suit. This is all clever. My wife's a hairstylist, so she
okay.
yeah. You wet this down and it looks terrible. Looks like Ted Danson from like the '80s Cheers. Uh, let's move along. Frosty Frozen has a question. He says, "How do you feel about the players' continued movement to save COH at this time, weeks after the closure of the game?"
I wish him all the luck in the world. I think the fact that they're even trying at all is amazing, right? And my knowledge of MMOs is very COH centric, so I don't know if anything like this was ever happened with any other MMO closures, but I don't think it has. People really were passionate and just I mean, at the end of the day, these people were all playing superheroes, right?
Yeah.
And so so when they see as injustice, they're going to do whatever they want, or whatever they can to right it, right? And so that's exactly what's happening in real life. Uh, so
I remember when I was an avid fan of Auto Assault, the short-lived Auto Assault, and people tried to save that, but there was only like 5 of us, so it didn't work out too well. Uh, but I really would love to see City of Heroes come back one day. It's just something that I'm not going to hold my breath for, you know.
yeah, we've had discussions like the designers and the programmers and I, who've all found other jobs and everything, and we're like, can you imagine what would happen if they actually did succeed
Hmm.
in like getting City Heroes back and like can you imagine them looking through our code trying to figure out just exactly how we made this game work? And everyone's like, that could never happen. Like they'd be lost because uh, we were lucky to have some developers on there, myself, Melissa Bianco, Vince D'Amelio,
Hmm.
who had been there since launch, right, and could help reverse engineer problems that we
Yeah,
came up with.
you knew it inside and out. You're like, oh no,
It,
that's how we
yeah,
do this.
we tried that years ago. It didn't work then. Still not going to work. So
That makes me another coming to another game. You look at now this is Turbine, and Turbine has the power to do it. But with Asheron's Call 2, they were just like, hey, guess what? Merry Christmas! It's back on. I don't know if they had to wait for like a statute of limitations to be up with Microsoft, or if
I
they I don't know, but it's back, right?
it is back,
Yeah.
and yeah, like I was shocked
I
that
think everybody
Astronaut
was.
Suit came back. Uh,
There's no
because
press release, just a forum post.
yeah, I tried playing I tried playing Astronauts 2 before back in beta. I was in the beta for that, and I was a tough game to play.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You want to talk about sandboxes and not knowing what to do. That's a
yeah,
good one.
that was very sandboxy.
Yeah.
I just remember making pants out of a shield, and I was like, their crafting system confused me from that point forward.
I remember specifically people coming up to me and being very helpful and giving me stuff, and then they would walk away, and I'd be like, I don't even know what to do with the stuff that they gave me. I'm very glad they did, but I'm clueless still. I wish they would come back and walk me around for a while.
Yeah.
But that it makes me wonder. Do you think that if years from now you might see something like that happen? If they're just like, hey, why not? We'll throw it up there.
I
Server
have
costs get
no,
really easy.
I cannot even crystal ball that. Like I don't even. Yeah, it might happen, and
Yeah.
I just don't know.
If
So.
it does, it better be auto assault too. I'm just saying.
And Tabula Rasa, right?
And Tabula Rasa and
Yeah.
Dungeon Runners.
Dungeon
I'm,
Runners, yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. There was what was that mech shooting one? I can't. X Steel was that it?
Steel,
Yeah,
yeah,
there
yeah.
you go. Get all those back and just be like, here you go. It's like the humble bundle of MMOs that were. Now we've got a few more questions, and then we'll take some from the chat too. These last three, I don't have a name for them, so I'm sorry if I left you out, but I think they're all from one person. Did you ever want to make an archetype or power set specific missions to increase replayability? Oh, let me say that again. Did you ever want to make archetype power or power set specific missions to increase replayability?
Yeah, we discussed that at one point. I came up with some ideas for doing some archetype specific stuff, but the answer to a lot of questions is time and resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can make something for 1/5 the game, or you can make something for 5/5 the game. When it comes to making archetype specific stuff, and generally the rule of thumb was, we erred on the side of just making more content for everyone. So that's basically what happened with that, because we didn't have like infinite designers working on missions. That would have been fantastic if you could just have like specific missions written by guys, just pumping out more and more new content all the time. But
Yeah.
that's really expensive.
That's a question I had to ask you. Like, do you think that there was something to the slow decline of City of Heroes, the fact that it was so content dependent? Do you think that if you had to redesign it, would you put in more systems, even more systems right from the start, so that it was built from the ground up to sort of support player generated content, like the Mission Architect, but deeper?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely player generated content being there from the beginning, making it a core part of the game, is a very good way to go, because you get a lot of players invested right from the beginning in making content for your game.
Mm-hmm.
So and then it's a little bit more relaxed on the developer output, and you can work on the better systems and just kind of make the core of the game better. And still make good content, good stories and stuff, but get kind of highlight the stuff the players are making.
Yeah, and that's sort of the thing. I think with a superhero game, you have to have content because by nature, it's not really like the kind of setting for a sandbox. It's more of a place where people want story. But it's like you said, it's so rough to keep that up year after year.
Yeah, city villains could be sandbox because villains are proactive,
Yeah.
and heroes are reactive.
Exactly.
Right? So,
There you go.
so in your perfect world, you've got villains creating the content for the heroes just by their actions. But we and during some early talks of City Heroes 2, it was the how do we make that work as a game,
Yeah.
and not be exploitable, and we never really could answer that last part.
Mm-hmm.
So
Do you ever think that they're going to do something like a City of Heroes 2? I mean, it's beyond your crystal ball, but
it's beyond my crystal ball. Like,
yeah.
if they did, like, it would be. I don't think anyone who worked on City of Heroes would be on it, right?
Yeah.
It would be entirely entirely, people who either, just played City Heroes or, just knew about City Heroes based on what we had,
Hmm.
what NCSoft owned at the time. So
As the market share for MMOs sort of it became super crowded, and things started to generate more towards IP driven products and stuff like that. Do you think that was something that hurt City of Heroes? Is that you had an IP that was entirely crafted by your studio and not something like DC or Marvel or whatever?
No, I think it's exactly the opposite. I think not having to deal with a licensor with in terms of getting approvals for things. Everything we put in the game was hours and hours alone. I think it was a lot more freedom. We could make the content we wanted. I think we were able to make more content because we didn't have to go through rigorous approval process
Yeah,
for everything. So I think City Heroes, if it was a licensed MMO, it would be a shell of what it was.
yeah. I totally agree. I was just trying to see what you would say. Because that's one of the things I think is troubling in the MMO industry is you see so many people relying on IPs to sell their product, and it's not necessarily the best way to go about keeping people long term.
It does, the advantage having an IP gives you is it gives you the hype at start, right?
Hmm.
There's
The
a
box
ton of
sales.
them. You get the box sales, you get people anxious for it because they know the IP. They don't have to learn a new world,
Yeah.
right? If you look on MMORPG, there's the upcoming MMOs, and you go down that list, and you can scratch your head as to what any of those are about because you'd have to actually go research them. But if you saw on the list a Firefly MMO, you immediately know
Hmm.
what that game's going to be about, right? And so there's a little bit of buy-in immediately that a license gives you. But then of course you have to
The
deal with
game's got
that.
to be there too.
You gotta have to, yeah.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of high-profile sort of middling successes lately. Let's put it that way. Um, yeah, but it's interesting because I think it also depends on the IP. You have an IP like if we go talk about Cryptic again, they have an IP like Neverwinter, which is based entirely around Dungeons and Dragons, which is perfect for an MMO that is built around created content.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it really just you have to design. If you're going to have an IP, you better design for that IP quite well.
Yes, absolutely. And I have all the faith that Cryptic's going to be able to pull off a fantastic game. So
I've seen it several times, and every time I'm just sad that I don't get to go home and play it. That's always like the bane of shows: is you play these upcoming games and then you can't do anything about it afterwards. It's good. Everybody watching, it's good. um, the next one we have. Let's see here. It's kind of hard to read this question because it's kind of out of sorts, but we have okay, we got day jobs. So was your rumored skill-based gameplay just not an available reality because of current tech, money, and/or time? Does that make sense to you?
yeah, it absolutely makes sense.
Okay.
So we actually had a skill system we were working on putting in the game about 8 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it was shortly after launch. We wanted something a little bit more, less combat-y, more things for your character to do, right? So we had basically designed a skill system where you would, concentrate in one of three areas: investigation. I don't remember what the other ones were. This is a long time ago. Um, but then there would be things on the maps that you could interact with based on your skills to sort of unlock more of a mission, right? With some rewards tied behind. Like if you had investigation, you could find the secret door in the map that leads to a special boss you could fight for a better drop. That sort of stuff.
Yeah.
When we zoomed out and said, "Oh, that looks really fun. We could do all this. We could do all this stuff." But when we zoomed out and looked at how much work it was going to be to implement that across all the maps and the skill system itself, and then always going forward, moving forward, of making sure all this stuff was touched forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not gonna work out. Like
Yeah.
time and money,
It's
making
both.
MMOs is not free,
Yeah.
right? And you have to figure out exactly how you're going to spend your development dollars.
Mm. See, and that's the kind of thing everybody you got these big pie high ideas or sky high ideas, and they sound great, but man, sometimes they're just not feasible. They can't work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you, just we would come up with such awesome ideas on a daily basis, and then the harsh reality of development time would crash us to the ground. So.
Yeah. Okay, and our last question from our forums was, if you had all the funding you needed and COH2 was a reality, besides the obvious graphical updates, what is the single most desired feature you, yes you, Matt Miller, would like to add to City of Heroes 2?
So it's like I mentioned a little earlier. Having villains create content for heroes was something that I really wanted to see in COH2, and especially tying stuff to mobile devices.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you're sitting on your iPhone on the bus, and you're sort of like kind of running your little criminal enterprise right on your phone. Okay, and so I'm gonna run guns from this part of the city to this part of the city because they're gonna sell better in this area, right? So you do that, and once you do that, you start the gun running. It actually creates a mission in the game for a villain to actually run the guns and for a hero to then go and stop them, right?
That'd be awesome.
And then you get rewarded based on that. And then of course there's always the tying stuff in with your mobile. There's sort of the Clark Kent moment, right, where you're sitting in a meeting and you're just at work, and your phone buzzes and you look at it and you see like Atlas Park under attack, alien invasion, right? And you have to ask yourself, do I excuse myself from this meeting to go save Atlas Park?
Put on your tights.
Put on my virtual tights, go to, sneak away to my computer, log in, and run this, event for 10 minutes. And can I save Atlas Park and not get in trouble at work because people figure out that I'm just playing games?
I think we all know the answer to that is yes. Yes, we do sneak away from the meeting. You blame explosive diarrhea and you run away.
I'm sure Clark Kent used explosive diarrhea all the time.
All the time. I think it's been in the comics several times. Anyway, folks, now that is the end of our user questions from the forums. If there's anything you'd like to ask Matt now, please do so. Otherwise, we're going to let the poor gentleman go back and hopefully eat some dinner, I bet. Well, I don't know what time it is there. Is it 5?
It's 5:13.
It's dinner time.
Yeah, my wife was like, we can go to dinner early tonight. And I'm like, no, we can't.
You're like, wah, because we had to reschedule. It's always MMORPG's fault.
Yes.
So let's check the chat just real quick. Any questions, folks, for Matt that we didn't cover? Something you need to know, a burning desire that you need to know.
I'll let you, Bill, read the chat and throw the questions at me.
We have a pseudo cool asks, when are you developing your own company?
When am I developing my own company? As soon as somebody wants to give me enough money.
So pseudo cool, pony up. And do you still kill skulls?
Do I was never a kill skull kind of guy. Right?
No.
That was Jack's whole idea of putting that as a badge in the game. I kind of rolled my eyes at it and was like, all right, it's a meme. All right, well, we can do it. So.
Okay, how about if the game were to return and it, was sold and bought up by somebody else, would you return? Could you return?
If the compensation was right, then yeah, sure.
And what was the level range of the Callisti Wharf?
Callisti Wharf was level 50 content, I believe.
There you go. So
See,
we can just rapid fire these.
It was max level content. It was the introduction of Battalion. It was finding out that Steve Sheridan was actually a Battalion agent all this time. Seeding the earth, trying to find our weaknesses so that the alien invasion force could come in and just wipe us out.
So that kind of leads to the next one that Dark Respite asks, which story do you regret not finishing?
Oh, the Battalion story. Absolutely. Like, coming up with the idea of Battalion, like, ages ago, and the sort of very lightly seeding them throughout the game until we did issue 10, where we really kind of said, there's this big threat out there, it's coming to destroy us all. and then players are like, well, what is it? What is it? What is it? And then we continue to drop hints and tell more and more about it, and we were getting ready to do the battalion storyline. We were getting ready to kind of have the big moment, the galactic battles, and yeah, the rug was pulled out from under us.
Okay, that's probably a good tie into this question too. And don't worry, guys, I'm copying down a bunch of them. If you've been able to spend the last few months building an end of game event, would you, and what would it have been?
Um, we definitely would have, and it would have been. I'm not exactly sure what it would have been. It would have had something to do with Battalion or Ruleroo, our two biggest threats. Possibly even Ouroboros and Mender Silos, because it really would have been a collaborative effort between all the designers, kind of trying to fish out like the best. What is the event that we can end the game on, type thing. It was never just me doing anything. It was always me and Dr. Aeon and Baryonyx and Black Scorpion and all the other designers kind of, Protean, talking about, what were the stories we wanted to tell. So.
Yeah. The next one was originally asked a while ago in chat, so I'm going to ask it now because I copied it then. What was being planned for the Omega and Carnet power? Was it a Doomsday AoE or something?
I don't even remember what like the those incarnate powers, like they went through several iterations. Like one of the very first iterations of the Omega powers was you could not die, right? Basically, if you got to 0 hit points, it ate away at your endurance until your endurance went to 0, and then you just stayed alive, but couldn't actually do anything. So.
And then, why do you think there have been no superhero or villain MMOs quite as good as City of Heroes and City of Villains?
Because I didn't work on them.
Oh, we knew that was coming, right? Okay. Was there anything secret in City of Heroes that maybe no one knew or few people knew of, discovered? Anything you can think of? Some Easter eggs that people missed?
I can't think of any that really went missing. The players are pretty good about picking up on them. Melissa Bianco put most of the Easter eggs in the game, so if you hit her on Twitter, which is at Melissa Bianco, ask her that question on Twitter, and she'll probably know a couple right off the top of her head.
We're gonna have to do that. What we'll have to do is we'll have to have a roundtable discussion with all the former devs too, just to kind of like a reunion. It'll be sweet. We'll do that after the new year. So next is we got 2 more questions. We have I'm sorry, 1 more question because we asked the other one. Matt, what was planned for the patrons' futures, Captain Mako and Ghost Widow especially?
I know Dr. Aeon talked a lot about Sirocco's sort of changing. He actually was going to become a hero, and so yeah, so that's in the Loregasm AMA that we did, which I believe is on the Titan forums now. It was on the COH forums, so now it's on the Titan forums. So you can go in there and
somebody just said that in chat too.
Yeah, and check and see if that's on if that's in there. So.
Okay, now we did get 2 more that came in, and that's it. I promise. What did the Praetorian vendors' names spell out? Anything?
They did, and they were basically. I don't remember what they spelled out, but the cipher is telephone keypad. So now, if you know that it's the ABC is one sort of keypad thing, then yeah, you should be able to cipher it out from there.
Somebody can figure it out.
Yep.
Right before we end the stream, tell us. Go spend that time. The last one, this is one I have to ask because not only did we have people ask it on the forums, but someone's asking it in the chat too, and you did say it was going to be an unsatisfactory answer, but can we give them some information on some of the new archetypes? if you remember any.
So we had the new arc. So we tried to do a primalist archetype, which was a shapeshifter. So you'd shapeshift into different animal shapes. But we actually abandoned that idea. Just wasn't very fun, right? But one thing we were working on and trying to put in the game for a new archetype was the Stryker Archetype,
Mhm.
which was sort of a melee ranged character. Basically, he had a melee power set and a ranged power set working in concert. So he was a good damage output, and he didn't really have a lot of the you know range holes that like a melee character or range character did. So
Well, there you go, folks. See, that wasn't so bad, Matt. You lied to me.
uh, yeah,
Anyway, that about does it for us, folks. Don't worry, this won't be the last time we see of Mr. Matt Miller. We can't call him Positron anymore. But I guarantee you, very shortly, we're going to know some awesome project he's working on, and then I hope, Matt, that you'll come by and talk to us again about that project.
sure, yeah, absolutely.
And I'm kind of serious about the whole reunion thing for City of Heroes. What if we did that?
I will post it to the gang and see what they have to say.
All right, then you can email me and tell me who's in and who's out.
Yeah.
So
Yes, I will.
I don't know how many calls a Skype call can hold, but we'll figure something out. All right,
Google Chat can do six.
Google
So
Chat can do 6. We'll move to that. That's what we'll do.
yep.
Well, thank you everybody for watching. Please do not forget to follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/MMORPGcom without the dot. And thank you again, Matt Miller, for hanging out with us right before the holidays.
Thanks for having me.
And, best of luck to you, sir, and please keep us posted on where you land.
Sure, absolutely.
All right,
Thanks.
guys. Thank you for watching, and we will talk to you later.